I took a job that paid less, but let me stay home with my kids. My husband's family mocked me for months. Must be nice to be a part-time wife, his sister said at every gathering. When I baked cookies for a school fundraiser, my mother-in-law took credit and said, "She's finally good for something." I told my husband I'd had enough. He said, "Don't be so sensitive. They joke because they care." That night, I slept on the couch. 3 days later, I took the kids and left. I live just outside Dayton, Ohio, in a town called Kettering. It's a quiet place. People mow their lawns every Saturday. Kids ride scooters down sidewalks. And for a while, I thought I had it all figured out. 3 years ago, I left my full-time job as a dental assistant. It wasn't because I was lazy or didn't want to work. It was because my daughter, Lily, who was 4 at the time, kept asking me why I had to leave so early and why I wasn't home when she got back from preschool. My son, Ben, was 7. He was old enough to understand I was working, but still, every time I came home late, I felt like I was missing pieces of their lives. So I found a part-time remote job managing healthcare insurance claims. The pay wasn't great, less than half of what I made at the clinic, but I could work from home, set my hours, and actually be there for my kids. I thought Dean, my husband, would be happy about it. I thought we were making a good choice together. At first, he seemed fine with it. Said he supported it, but things changed fast. He started making little comments, like, "It must be nice to wear sweatpants all day," or "What do you even do when the kids are at school?" I should have spoken up more then. But I told myself he's stressed. He'll come around. Then came the Sundays. His family, his mom Patty, his sister Megan, and his dad Greg held a standing Sunday dinner. Like it was mandatory. Patty cooked every time and acted like it was a 5-star meal. Truthfully, it was usually dry roast chicken and boxed mashed potatoes, but God forbid anyone said anything. The first time Megan called me a part-time wife, I was pouring myself a glass of water. We were all sitting around the table. Megan lifted her wine glass, smirked, and said, "Cheers to the part-time wife." Dean laughed. His dad laughed. Even Patty chuckled. I forced a smile. That was the beginning. Every Sunday after that, it got worse. "Oh look, she brought a salad." All that free time's paying off. Bet you took a nap after that hard morning folding laundry. You're practically retired already. What's next? Knitting. And the worst part? Dean never said a word. Not once. I told him how I felt. More than once. His answer was always the same. "They're just teasing. Don't be so sensitive." One time, I looked him dead in the eye and said, "If I called Megan a corporate robot who's never going to have a real relationship, would you call that teasing too?" He got mad. Told me I was being mean and defensive. I realized then it wasn't just them. It was him too. But the real slap came when I baked cookies. Lily's school was doing a fall fundraiser, and they asked for baked goods. I figured it'd be a good way to do something fun with her, so we made 3 dozen chocolate chip cookies. Real ones. From scratch. I even wrapped them in little plastic bags with ribbons. Took us hours. That morning, Patty was at the school volunteering. She saw me drop off the cookies. That night at dinner, she looked right at me and said, "The cookies I brought to the fundraiser were the first to go." People begged me for the recipe. I stared at her. "You brought them." She smiled. Well, I made sure they got there. Then she turned to Dean and said, "She's finally good for something." I couldn't even speak. Dean didn't defend me. He just picked up another role like nothing happened. When we got home, I told him I couldn't keep doing this. He rolled his eyes and said, "Don't be so dramatic. They joke because they care." I slept on the couch that night. The next day, I called a lawyer and asked about legal separation. 3 days later, while Dean was at work, I packed 2 suitcases and took the kids. I didn't yell. I didn't even leave a note. I just left. We moved into a small apartment. Nothing fancy, but I made it cozy for the kids. I used the rest of my savings to cover our rent and bills. I told the kids Daddy and Mommy needed space and that we'd still see him. Dean called that night. Then again. Then again. I didn't answer. When I finally picked up 2 days later, he asked, "What are you doing?" "This is insane." I told him I was done being the punching bag. Done being laughed at. Done being married to someone who let me get humiliated every week. He said I was overreacting. I hung up. That winter, I enrolled in an online course to get certified in healthcare billing and coding. I studied late into the night after the kids went to sleep. I worked my part-time job during the day, and slowly, I started building something. By spring, I had a few private clients. By summer, I had my own business. Within 8 months, I was making more than I ever had before. More than Dean. But I kept that part quiet. Then came Christmas. Dean called and said his mom wanted us to come over. Said she missed the kids. I asked, "Did she say she missed me?" He said, "Don't start." I paused. Thought about it. Then I said, "We'll come." But I had a plan. I made those same cookies again. Same recipe. Same wrapping. But this time, I added a label. Cookies by Claire, owner, Healthcare Billing Services. When Patty saw the label, she blinked. "What's this?" "My business," I said. "I started it this year." Megan snorted. "You sell cookies now?" "No," I said, holding up an envelope. "This is what I made in the last 6 months, $68,000. Working from home. Part-time. And without anyone talking down to me." Dean's jaw tensed. Patty's smile froze. I wasn't done. "I came tonight because my kids wanted to see their grandparents. But I'm not part of this family anymore. Not as a daughter-in-law. Not as a joke. And definitely not as the silent one." I stood up, looked at Dean, and said, "You had every chance to stand by me. Instead, you sat there and laughed. That's the last time I play the fool in this house." Then I turned to Ben and Lily. "Let's go, kids." We walked out. I left the cookies behind. After Christmas, things got quiet. Too quiet. Dean didn't call. Patty didn't message. Megan didn't send any of her usual passive-aggressive texts. I thought maybe they were embarrassed. Maybe they finally got the hint. I was wrong. One day in early January, I got a letter in the mail. A notice from Dean's lawyer. He was filing for joint custody. Up until then, we hadn't gone to court. We were living separately, but I had the kids full-time, and he saw them every other weekend. We agreed on that without lawyers. But now he wanted 50/50ths. And not just that. He wanted to reduce his child support. I stared at the letter. I couldn't believe it. The same man who let his family tear me down for years, who didn't lift a finger when I left, was now fighting me for the kids and for money. I called him. "What is this?" He was cold. "You left, Claire. You don't get to keep the kids like you own them. I didn't keep them from you. You moved out. You made that choice. I deserve equal time." "Is this about the kids?" I asked, "or the fact that I'm not struggling like you expected?" He hung up. The custody hearing was scheduled for March. In the meantime, I did what I always did. I worked. I took care of the kids. I kept my head down. But inside, I was boiling. Then I found out something else. Megan had applied for a business loan using my business name. I got an alert from my registration service that someone had tried to open a federal tax ID under Healthcare Billing Solutions by Claire. It triggered a fraud flag because my business was already registered with the IRS. I called the number listed on the inquiry. Guess who answered? Megan. At first, she pretended not to know who I was. Then she said, "It's just a name. You don't own every combination of words." "You literally used my full business name," I said. "I figured since you're busy baking cookies, maybe you weren't serious about the other part." I hung up and called my lawyer. He told me what I already knew. It was fraud. But proving intent? That would take time. And court. So I waited. At the custody hearing, I was ready. I brought documents showing the kids' school involvement, my work hours, and how I arranged every detail of their care. I had screenshots of Dean texting late or canceling weekends. I even had letters from both kids' teachers talking about how consistent I'd been. Dean walked in with Patty and Megan. Patty glared at me the whole time. Megan smirked. Dean tried to act like he was just a caring dad, but the judge saw through him. Asked why he hadn't filed sooner. Why he didn't request any extra time until I'd started making good money. Dean stammered. I just miss my kids. The judge nodded. Then asked me if I had anything else. I stood up and handed over a file. It included Megan's fraud attempt, the lawyer's letter, my trademark filing. I didn't say much. Just let the paperwork speak for itself. The judge didn't rule that day. Said he'd issue a written decision. But Dean didn't wait for it. 2 days later, I got a voicemail. He was drunk. Slurring. You think you're so smart, Claire? So damn smart? All your money, your little business, your big mouth. No wonder no one respects you. No one ever will. I saved the message. After that voicemail, I didn't respond. I forwarded it to my lawyer instead. He told me to sit tight and not engage. He said Dean was unraveling and, from the looks of things, I was in a stronger position than ever. But that didn't mean I wasn't nervous. That Sunday, Ben came home from Dean's place quiet and moody. I asked what was wrong, and he just shrugged. Lily, on the other hand, was talkative. Daddy said you're trying to keep us away from Grandma and Grandpa, she said while coloring. I froze. What do you mean, sweetheart? He said you're trying to make us forget them. That you hate them. I didn't answer right away. Then I said I would never tell you who to love. But I will always protect you from people who don't treat others with kindness. She nodded like she understood. But inside, I felt the weight of something heavy settle in my chest. Dean wasn't just coming for me through court. He was starting to get inside our kids' heads. I decided to record every pickup and drop off from that point forward. Not just for court, but for my own safety. 2 weeks later, something happened that I still can't explain without feeling my stomach turn. I picked the kids up from Dean's apartment. He handed over their backpacks, said nothing. The kids got in my car. As we pulled away, Ben whispered, "Did you look in my bag?" I looked at him through the rearview mirror. Why? Daddy said not to show you. As soon as we got home, I opened Ben's backpack. Inside was a printed email. From my lawyer. One of our early exchanges. It was marked confidential. It had details about my income, my legal goals, and even a draft outline of what we planned to show in court. I couldn't believe it. Dean had gone through my personal documents somehow. I don't know how he got that email, but it was mine. From my inbox. Probably from the time he borrowed my old laptop to reset it. He printed it out and gave it to our son to hide in his bag. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about custody. This was war. I called my lawyer. He was livid. We're filing for full custody, he said. And we're going to ask the court to restrict his visitation. I agreed. It was no longer safe to share parenting with someone who would use our kids like that. But before the paperwork went through, Dean did something worse. He showed up at Lily's school. It was during lunch hour. He wasn't scheduled for pickup. He wasn't listed for that day. But he walked right into the school, said he was there to bring something Lily forgot. When the school secretary called me, I nearly dropped the phone. I told them to make him leave, the secretary said. He looked agitated. We're going to flag his access going forward. I thanked her, hung up, and sat in silence. Then I called my lawyer again. Add a restraining order, I said. He's done. The restraining order was granted fast. I showed the court everything, his voicemail, the school report, the printed email from my lawyer that he gave to Ben. The judge didn't just grant me full custody, she suspended Dean's visitation completely until further review. He'd have to petition the court and go through supervised visits if he ever wanted to see the kids again. Dean was furious. He showed up at my apartment building 2 nights later, banging on the door, yelling loud enough for the neighbors to call the police. I didn't open the door. I held my kids tight in the back bedroom until the cops pulled him away in cuffs. He was charged with violating the restraining order. That was his third strike. He lost his job a month later. I heard through mutual friends that he was couch surfing at some guy's place in Miamisburg. Megan was laying low, probably too embarrassed to show her face after the fraud attempt. She never apologized. Patty? She sent a card. A store-bought sympathy card. No return address. Inside, just 4 words in shaky cursive, "We didn't mean to." I sat on the kitchen floor and stared at it. I didn't cry. I didn't tear it up. I just placed it in a drawer and walked away. But I wasn't perfect either. I looked back on the early years, and I realized I let too much slide. I smiled when I wanted to scream. I stayed quiet when I should have fought back. I told myself I was keeping the peace, but really I was shrinking, hiding, and I let my kids grow up watching that. That part? That's on me. So I changed. I started therapy. Not for them, for me. I learned how to speak up without guilt. I learned how to say no. I stopped shrinking. And when Ben asked why Daddy didn't come around anymore, I didn't lie. I said, Daddy made some choices that weren't safe for us. It doesn't mean you can't love him, but it's my job to keep you safe. That's what I'm doing. He nodded slowly, said, okay, then he hugged me. That hug meant more than any courtroom win. This past fall, I moved us into a house. Not a rental. A real one. I bought it with my business income. 2 bedrooms for the kids. An office for me. A backyard where Lily runs in the sprinkler and Ben sets up his soccer goals. I put up a sign in my office. Part-time wife. Full-time everything else. Some days, I still feel the old ache. The shame. The guilt. But then I remember how far we've come. Dean tried to tear me down. His family tried to laugh me out of my own life. But I stood back up. I built something real. And now? I'm not someone's wife. I'm someone. And no one gets to take that away again.